Welcome to Conversations on Social Work Careers. My name's Jennifer Luna, and I write the column on social work careers for the New Social Worker magazine. And this is the New Social Worker YouTube channel. And today we are so thrilled to be here with you today. Several of the columnists for the New Social Worker magazine, and we have Linda Grobman with us as well. And Linda, I don't think I've had you on the show before.
No.
So great to see you and to have you with us and to have all of these lovely authors with us. So we're going to start by introducing ourselves. And I'm going to start with Linda.
Okay. Well, I'm Linda Grobman. I'm the publisher, editor, and founder of the New Social Worker magazine. And I've been doing this for 30 years now. And I always say that I am the luckiest editor in the whole world because I have the best writers that I have found or that have found me. And we have connected, and I just have the best writers for the New Social Worker.
Awesome. Well, thank you for bringing us all together. Veronica, would you like to go next?
Absolutely. First, I just want to say thank you, Jennifer, for bringing us all together today. And like Jennifer mentioned, my name is Veronica Hardy. I recently retired from my tenured professor position at the University of North Carolina, Pembroke Department of Social Work. But then I started a faculty position at another university called St. Joseph's University in Philadelphia.
Right.
And that position is in the clinical mental health counseling program. So I've definitely been enjoying this, and I'm still adjunct faculty at UNC Pembroke as well.
Welcome. Thank you. How about Arlene?
Hi, thanks, Jennifer and Linda, as always, for making this forum possible as well. And I'm delighted to share some time with you all today. I always enjoy the other columns and writings of each of you. And of course, we all know that Linda said she's lucky to have the best writers. And as someone who does editing and who's been edited a lot, I have a great appreciation for Linda and for her leadership over these decades. So I am a what I call a refired social worker, and I have done a lot of different things over my career: clinical work, administrative work, in child welfare and hospitals. But for a big part of my career was professor, and absolutely loved the teaching learning aspect. And it was during my time as a professor that I became literally convicted about the need for deep and serious attention to practitioner well-being and self-care. And so I feel really fortunate that at this phase in my professional contributions, I'm very much focused on promoting and supporting that as an essential aspect of our profession. And so I started an LLC, the Wellness Group, ETC, and have, as I say, dedicated this time in my professional life to that aspect.
Thank you. And I'm going to go back to Veronica for a minute. Tell us what you write about.
Oh, yes. So my column in the New Social Worker magazine is called What About Social Justice? So with each article, I focus on a social justice issue, such as environmental justice, justice in the workplace, health equity, racial equity, and so much more that will be coming in more of the upcoming issues for this year.
Thank you. Let's go to Gina next.
Oh, I'm Dr. Gina Griffin. I'm a social worker and a trauma therapist. I've been working exclusively in trauma therapy for about the past decade, and I've loved doing that. But I also wear a lot of hats, like a lot of the other folks here. I write about technology for the New Social Worker magazine for Linda, and I'm fascinated with ways that technology and social work and society in general interact. And I also run a nonprofit called Adventures in Social Work Research that focuses on helping to get social work clinicians involved in research. So I think a lot of the things that I'm interested in are trying to find ways for social workers to move more into areas that are not quite so traditional. And I really enjoy doing that.
Thank you. How about you, Sarah Kay?
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much, Jennifer, for bringing us together. And I do have, my name is Sarah Kay Smolens, and I do have to say that I think Linda was born not only to be a social worker, our Linda Grobman, but to be an editor. Linda hears not just the music, but the music behind our words, and she helps us to express them. My column is Vital Topics in Social Work and Film. I have long felt that film, poetry, architecture helps us to understand humanity far better than the DSM, whatever version it is. And I have felt that it's so important to look at a person's background and understanding how that person developed, which is often sort of overlooked in all mental health fields. And by looking at a background of one can understand what one has always longed for that's gotten in the way of that person becoming who he, she, they have always yearned to be. And, films help us look at all of the evil external isms that mold a person and inhibit a person and take away grace and hope. But also films just help us understand humanity in a far different and more imperative way. So my privilege has been to try to bring these insights to a column where Linda and I decide what film or what book. We also reviewed Harry's Spare, Prince Harry's Spare, and what can bring the human dilemma and challenge of life in dimension to our readers. And I have throughout my professional life tried very hard to appeal not just to those in our profession, but people who are natural social workers or don't even know they're natural social workers to join our efforts. Because I think one of the wonderful things about self-care is you feel so good when you join an effort that is going to be meaningful to other people besides yourself. So I want to say my research mainly has been in invisible cycles of emotional abuse that most don't recognize, that are always part of physical, sexual, and sexual abuse, but deserve their own codification, as well as burnout and self-care. So it's so nice to have colleagues to talk about these things with. It means the world to all of us, especially this month.
Thank you. Yes, it really does. And I love that we all have such diverse insights and interests. And this year, the Social Work Month theme is empowering social workers, inspiring action, and leading change. And when we first discussed the idea of putting this video together, we thought about what would be the question for our panelists today. And so I asked our panelists to think of either something that has inspired them in their career, or words of inspiration to our readers or our social work students, professional social workers who've been in the field for a long time, or ways that you felt like you've led change or the change you would like to see. So I'm going to kick it off with Veronica again, if that's okay. Kick us off, and then we'll have you ping pong to someone else.
Absolutely. So definitely something that I focus on that's very much in alignment with the column. What about social justice is the issue of human trafficking, and even more specifically, child sex trafficking. So mainly I focus on prevention and intervention through presenting, through writing, and supporting nonprofit organizations. So something that I've really wanted people to understand, social workers and even beyond social workers, is that when you are engaging in social justice or want to engage in social justice efforts, it can be something that is right there at your fingertips. So whether it is creating a post on your social media site, creating a podcast or even a podcast episode, an article for the New Social Worker magazine. Again, there are so many ways that you can engage in social justice efforts, and you don't have to kind of measure your efforts against someone else's, because I often say that each step counts that we engage in. So again, that's something that I have learned just throughout my career, but also those words of inspiration that I like to pass on to someone else. And let's see, let's ping pong to Erlene.
Thanks, Veronica. Well, in terms of the theme, empowering social workers, I have to say that in terms of my being my inspiration for, as I said, the focus of my work in this phase of my career was my work with students. And so I think to be reminded of the importance of students and new professionals, and the socialization of those new professionals, as not just talking about empowerment as it refers to working with clients or working with systems of change, but really understanding the essential need to begin one's profession and to sustain in one's profession is about empowering ourselves. And I think one of the many struggles in our professions is our struggles around power, and in particular, our own power. And if you think about empowerment, I'm a word nerd, so you can't do empowerment. The essence of empowerment is understanding power. And I'm going to write more about this, Linda, for the blog, but I really want to emphasize that self-care is about power. We think of self-care as something aside from or in addition to empowerment. But I looked up the definition of empowerment in the social work dictionary, which I will read to you. And it says, empowerment is the process of helping individuals, families, groups, and communities increase their personal, interpersonal, socioeconomic, and political strengths and develop influence toward improving their circumstances. So when I read that, does self-care come to mind? Probably not. And that's a problem. That's a huge problem. In that, we don't keep ourselves and our own empowerment, our own power as a part of our understanding of empowerment. So I would encourage us in leading change in our profession to embrace our own sense of empowerment. And that starts with and is threaded through with and is at core about our own power. in attending to ourselves, which is really in any systems change, is the most powerful entry point. When I do self-care workshops, I emphasize absolutely systems are toxic. Absolutely. We live in a culture at every level with injustices, with oppression, with intense and invasive and pernicious isms. And absolutely, in order to be able to navigate those, we have to have the power of self and believe in, and not just believe in, certainly value that. It starts with the valuing of it. You know, with CSWE, the competencies, how we become competent in something is through knowledge, values, skills, cognitive and affective processes. And I have found that a lot of it comes apart because of not understanding the value. We focus on knowledge and skills, but I think to really understand and appreciate and activate the value of self-care as empowerment and power. Really, there's hardly anything that you could name that doesn't have to do with power at root. And I would encourage us to embrace the fact that self-care, not selflessness, not abdicating ourselves or giving of ourselves until we are emptied, is really at core a lot of the issues in our profession around burnout, around the sustaining the profession, around being able to navigate these intense, multifaceted things that we navigate, come back to our ability to embrace our own power. And that is, again, the essence of empowerment is to understand our own power and understand how to attend to our own selves. And then if that inspires action, that inspires attention, and I think that's how we're the only way, really, that we're going to lead the change that will keep our profession relevant, effective, and sustainable.
Thank
I
you.
kind of believe in self-care.
Thank you.
And I think that I will ping pong to Gina.
Hello. Well, I absolutely agree with you about power and empowerment. And I really love being a direct practice social worker. And I'm teaching that this semester at Columbia School of Social Work. And hopefully I'm able to pass on some of that expertise related to trauma to my students. And I hope I'm doing a good job of that. However, I think a lot of my other outside activities have to do with empowering clinical social workers because I think that we're an underutilized source. I think that people like to put us in a pigeonhole and believe that that's all we can do. And I am not minimizing that in any way because the work that we do is amazing. And I do believe that it helps people and that it changes lives. But there are other things that we can do that empower our clients and empower ourselves. And I think that they also they're good they're good advertising for social work. So when you think about two things like technology and research, it might not be readily apparent to other people what clinical social workers have to do with that. But as far as research goes, I really do believe that we need more clinical researchers and clinical social workers involved in research, because we're the folks who are the boots on the ground, and we actually see what's relevant in the field at this moment, and we know what clients need, and we can recruit them for research, and we know which EVPs are effective. And so not having us involved in that research just really doesn't make any kind of sense. When I was working on my capstone project, one of the things that I found out was that it takes about 15 to 18 years to turn around a research project from beginning to end. So to get it from the point where it's incepted to the point where it's actually put into use. And that doesn't make any sense, because sometimes what you're working on isn't even relevant anymore by the time you get to that point. But if you include clinical social workers and if you include your stakeholders, then that cuts that time considerably. And so in a lot of places, people aren't willing to invest in the training and the time for clinical researchers to do that type of work. And I think that's a big mistake. And I think that's one thing we need to start to attend to. The other area, of course, is technology. And I think a lot of people really don't make that connection. Again, when I was working on my capstone project, I was talking to a lot of friends that I have in our programming, because I'm super, super geeky. And that was something that I was really involved in at the time. And so I would ask them, why don't we have more people like social workers and people in social sciences involved in these types of fields? And they were just dumbfounded, because they were like, what does that have to do? What does that have to do with ethics? What do social workers have to do with ethics? And I said, wow, we're doing a really, really bad job of advertising ourselves if people don't understand that. And of course, those things are relevant to social work. So all of these issues that we have around technology now, that's our job, to make sure that people aren't hurt in the things that are being developed. And I think those things are becoming more apparent over time. So we know that people's data is being captured without their consent, and it's being held for ridiculous amounts of time, and sometimes it's an error and they can't fix it. We know that there are small children who've been labeled as gang members as a mistake in databases that they had no choice in being in, and you can't fix that. Or you've been wrongly represented in a mugshot. Your mugshot, you don't have a mugshot, but it's been matched up with something in facial recognition, and so now you're arrested for something you didn't do, because AI does a really bad job at recognizing the faces of people of color. You've been denied your food stamps because some mistake was made about somebody else because they stole your identity, and there's no way for you to fix that because the system hasn't been set up that way. And of course, all those things are social justice issues. And so I think that we need a lot more social workers who understand that process and who can explain those processes to their clients and find ways to be more involved so that we can stop those things from happening to people. And so I'm clearly very passionate about those things. And yeah, I think that empowering social workers is also going to empower our clients in those fields. And then of course, I'm going to ping pong over to Sarah Kay.
I thank you. I love being able to follow everybody's wisdom. I love hearing that self-care is power. And I love what goes after that, that self-care is societal care. And we've done such a bad job caring for our children, because when children have no idea what love is and don't experience it, and it isn't just the children from our most vulnerable populations, some very privileged kids are suffering so because nobody gives them what they need. And then these suffering children grow into adults that don't know how to be true citizens and don't know how to lead effectively and non-abusively, even if it's invisible, in families, in work settings, of course, in all of the systems that permeate our lives, on boards, and in elected office. So I love the idea that we're bringing in the psychology of human development and how important it is, because when children know they're loved, they can communicate, they can listen deeply, they can question deeply held ideas that perhaps need a more flexible approach. And I so agree that Social Work Month is always a month where we're asked to come together and hope and give promise in how we live, how we work, what we write. Those we're privileged to work with, of course, the students we're honored to work with. But also, the times today are unlike any times that I can remember in my life. We are so divided. We are so angry. And we know from research that when dysfunctional leaders take hold in a time like this, hate, prejudice permeates. And I've had the privilege of working with clients and students for well over 30 years. And this is what most people don't talk about. Unfinished emotional business is then projected on others and leads to hate because it starts from not being loved yourself. It starts from self-hate. So we have our work cut out for us. And, I know we can do it because in different ways, we're all speaking the same language. And that's a privilege. And I love hearing about St. Joe's. God bless St. Joe's in Philadelphia. And Joanne Epps, a former president of Temple, also such a wonderful university, talks about what we all believe. We can disagree without being disagreeable. That's Joanne's words. She died before her time, and it's an honor to quote her. And this is what we can talk about: power and self and societal care. As social workers today, above all, we need to until I don't know what happens, until I don't know what even to say, but until Taylor writes a bad song, how's that? Until then, we have to scream out how important it is for our profession and for those who appreciate social work, how important it is to understand that we must address these issues that are dividing us in an agreeable way, in a mutually respectful way.
Thank you. Linda, would you like to go?
Sure. Before we talk about what I wanted to talk about, I wanted to mention that one of our columnists is not here today with us, and that's Dr. Alan Barsky. He writes the Ethics Alive column for the New Social Worker and has been writing that for many, many years and is another vital part of this team. And so the thing I wanted to say is just about the social work profession and the fact that there are so many different ways to be a social worker and so many career options. You can work in the public sector, for-profit, nonprofit. You can go into private practice. You can, pretty much, create your own thing that nobody else has ever done before. And there's so many different settings. And so, I think that it is empowering that, you have all of these options in social work. And if you're in one area and you feel like you want to do something different, you don't have to leave the whole profession of social work. You can just go to a different aspect of social work and then move on, or you can go back to the one that you were in before. And I started out in public mental health, inpatient, and then I went to children's medical social work, and then from there I went to association management and then publishing a magazine. So
Wonderful. That's a great segue to what I wanted to talk about. I forgot to mention that I write your social work career coach column, and for 30 years I worked at the university. I like to joke because I graduated from the program, but I never left the building. And I've coached thousands of social work students and alumni. And in September, I retired and I took on another job at the Network for Social Work Management, where we focus primarily on leadership and macro social work, which has always been my passion. That was my concentration when I was a student. And I also have a consulting business. And my advice regarding the theme is to take your power back. And by that, I mean, I've worked with so many social workers who are not happy with their job or who have thought that they needed to either leave the field or, or just stuck and don't know what to do. And we don't have to do that. We've got a degree or a license. Some of us have license, some of us don't, but we all have the foundation of our education to fall back on. And we all have the capacity to make a huge impact on individuals, families, groups, communities, organizations, and globally. And it's not necessary to stay unhappy if if you're not liking your job. And along with that, I always like to say to raise each other up. There's a lot of great websites, including Linda's New Social Worker, which is a phenomenal resource, trusted resource for over 30 years. I grew up with the New Social Worker, I like to say, because I graduated the same year you started. And there's a lot of resources for people who are looking to gain knowledge about changing careers. You don't have to go pay somebody to help you do it. You can if you want to, but there's a lot of resources. And we as social workers who are able to have this platform, we have the ability to raise each other up just like everybody else does. I would suggest that for all of our viewers, if there's still time to nominate someone for Social Work Month, it means so much to that person, and it doesn't take long to do it. If there's an organizational award or an alumni award, or even just putting a sticky note on someone's desk and saying, "You're a phenomenal social worker," those things mean so much to people. And those are the little things or big things which can cause a transformational difference in someone's career. So that would be my piece for Social Work Month. And now I'd like to kind of circle back to everyone and ask you, what was your biggest takeaway? And I'll start. My biggest takeaway was Dr. Gina talking about technology. I think we're just in a transformational stage of the profession of social work. And while for many years we've been talking about the importance of technology, some of the work that you're doing, Dr. Gina, and the work with AI and the things that you talked about are really going to impact our clients. And that was my greatest takeaway, although there was lots of them as part of the conversation. How about you, Arlene?
I think one of my takeaways from this conversation and from just thinking about the work of each of the folks that are on my screens at the moment is the incredible synergy of our profession, and to think about what each of us brings. And then I'm just looking at each of you and thinking of all the decades, and I love being old, and I love being an old woman, and all the decades of our experience, the fact that our profession, even with these, how many of us, 6 of us, representing our profession, if you just look at us alone, the power of our profession, the exponential power of that synergy, and that it takes each of us, and it's so important. A part of my self-care is gratitude, and that's such an important practice. And as you were saying, Jennifer, to appreciate our profession, to appreciate individual social workers, to appreciate the synergy. So again, I think my biggest takeaway really is how delightful it is, how energizing, and how important it is to stay connected and to be aware of there's no way I could do half of or anywhere near what the stuff that Gina does, the stuff that Veronica does, Sarah Kay, Linda, Jennifer. But knowing, just hearing today, it's so encouraging, and talk about inspiring, to know that it helps me be able to rest a little bit sometimes, because it's like, hey, Gina, Veronica, Sarah Kay, Linda, and Jennifer got this. I can step back. And that it's not all up to me. It is up to me in that, and that goes back to that self-care of what I bring needs to be, I say, I don't necessarily always bring my best. I think that's an unrealistic expectation. And sometimes I'm just good enough. But to know and appreciate and delight in the power of what is just in these frames, and then you extrapolate that to all the other, ever how many social workers there are, to really celebrate that.
Thank you. Sarah Kay, would you like to go next?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I didn't know how much I needed today until I've experienced it. I am delighted that we're focusing on technology and its positive potential. What I've seen in my work is that the illiterate among us are not those any longer who can't read or write, but those who can't keep up with the constant change that technology has brought us. And I love that and I need that, but I didn't expect, you said we would share a takeaway. I didn't expect this takeaway. Those of you who know my writing know that I don't always write things that people like, but I write my truth. I really write my truth. And some of the feedback has been pretty awful, tell you the truth. Yeah. From those in our profession too, but freedom of speech is important. So a few years ago, and some of what I really want to present isn't accepted because not everybody's Linda, and not everybody can hear that even if we're not exactly on somebody's page, we do have a perspective to offer. But let me see, Linda was there about 3 years ago. I forgot if it were a national NASW meeting or NASWPA meeting. But after presentations, people were asked to put stickums on your back about what they really got out of your presentation. And I got some really nice feedback on stickums, and they're in my night table drawer. And when I'm really down about some things that go on in the world or go on right among us or go on even with colleagues, I take out those stickums and I read them. And they are self-care. And I think that what you're all offering in depth and authenticity today is self-care for us. And I thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Thank you. How about Veronica next?
Yeah, I just feel very much along the lines of Sarah Kay. I feel full, and I wonder if anyone else feels full, like emotionally and mentally full. Just listening to social work is such a rich tapestry of a profession. I feel like that's a lot of what I heard today and a lot of what I was reminded about today, that we can transition our roles. Our degrees are there, our certifications, our licenses. I mean, there's so much that we all pour into, and that is such a valuable profession. And at the same time, remembering to be able to pour into ourselves. Certainly those were some key takeaways, and certainly that technology piece. I'm even sitting here thinking of my next article, Gina, around this about even telehealth justice, the work that we need to be able to do around that as well to keep our clients safe, with the use of this new and contemporary forms of technology. So those were some of my key takeaways from today.
Thank you. Linda?
Yeah, the idea of feeling full, that's certainly something that I feel from being here today, and something I've needed. And yeah, I just think that every person who is here today in this virtual space brings something important and unique, and that matters a lot. And I'm just incredibly thankful for all of you.
Oh, we're thankful for you.
Where's everybody here?
I guess
Thank
it leaves me.
Gina.
I think that my takeaway is that we don't have to be by ourselves. We are not alone. The world, as Sarah Kay said, is often hard. And as Arlene says, the work is often taxing. And whether you're buried in a large agency or whether you're sitting at home by yourself and working, that you can feel isolated. And it can be very easy to get to that place and feel like what you do doesn't matter, or that nobody cares about you, or your struggle is not realistic. But I think that what I've been hearing is that there are people who care about you, and there are people who want to help you to carry that weight, and you don't have to feel alone. So somewhere there is a supervision group out there with your name on it, where there's a supervisor or a manager who wants to hear how you're struggling, or there's a coworker who wants to sit down at lunch with you, even if it's on Zoom, and you don't have to carry all of that alone. And I think that was my takeaway.
That's awesome. That's a wonderful takeaway. And as all of y'all feel very full today, I just want to thank you so much for your time. This was, as you can imagine, it was a little difficult to schedule because everyone is so busy making such a huge impact. But the fact that you took your time today means so much. And Linda, I just want to thank you again for bringing us all together through the new social worker, and whether it be through our writings or these videos. We certainly appreciate you, and this is a tribute to you and your work.
Thank you.
All right. Well, for all of our viewers, we will have information on all of our wonderful presenters in the show notes, in the comments under YouTube. And we hope that you'll like and comment if there was a takeaway that you found and you'd like to comment. We'd love to hear about it. And again, I just want to thank everybody and wish you all a happy Social Work Month.
Happy
Thank you.
Social Work Month.